What is up guys, and welcome to my first ever Photoshop tutorial. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys how you can make a clean and simple social media header, whether it's for your Twitter, Twitch or Facebook. This header is going to be really simple to make. Doesn't matter if you're a pro at Photoshop or just starting out, this is going to be something for everyone. It doesn't take a lot of skill, but it'll show you the resources to continue to design and make new things off of this tutorial. So as I say, let's get straight into the video. To start off this header design, what we're going to do is create a new page, open it up. We're going to select our width as 3000, our height as 1000. This is the common size that you use for social media banners such as Twitter. Usually it takes 1500 by 500, but what I like to do is do it double the size and then export it at 50% of the size, so you get a little bit more quality in it. We're going to set our resolution to 300, make sure it's in pixels, RGB color, 8-bit, we don't want 16-bit, and we're going to make our background color black. You don't really need this because we're going to be changing it, but I like to start that way. You don't need to worry about any of the advanced options. We're just going to hit create, and let's get into it. First off, what we're going to do is we're going to change the color of our background. We're going to double click on our layer, we're going to add a color overlay, select our color, we're going to go up to these blues and select around about here. We want it close to a black but still be a blue, because when we add highlights to it, that blue is going to be shown off a little bit more. What we're going to do is rasterize that layer, make a new layer on top of that, and we're going to add a small little light to the background. What I like to do is I'm going to select the blues, go to around about the middle. I'm going to zoom out on my page, make my brush size a bit bigger. You can do this by either right clicking on your brush, dragging this bar up, or you can do it manually from the side. I'm then going to make sure the hardness on 0%, and I'm just going to apply a little bit of glow to the top over here. I'm then going to reduce this opacity down to around about 50%, I would say. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to make a new layer on top of this. From here we're going to start making our shapes and building onto it. I'm going to select from the corner over to around about this height, and we're going to make this triangle shape. Once it's connected, hit select, OK. I'm just going to fill this in. There are other ways to do this, such as using the lasso tool. You can make any shape you want, but it's really up to preference. I'm going to get rid of this. We're going to change this color to around the same, bit lighter. Hit OK. Rasterize that layer. Now we're going to make our top shape. I'm going to go down to the side, connect that, select, and just make sure that it's on a new layer. Fill this in, and what you can do is just hit on your keyboard, take this color, G, and fill in this color. From here we've got our two colors. We're going to add some tone to that, add some depth. So to do this, I'm going to hit this checkered box over here. This means that whatever I put on top of this will only happen inside of this shape. So I'm going to hit B on my keyboard, go to the middle color that we use for the light again, so around about here. I'm going to add some depth to this. We're going to hit the check mark on both of these layers, so whatever we do will happen inside of our selected layer. Hit B on a keyboard for our bottom layer. I'm just going to add a little bit of light to the bottom here. That looks good. For this top one, what I want to add is a bit of this aqua blue. I'm just going to hit it right in the corner over here, so you get about there. That looks perfect. I'm going to then undo this, and what I like to do from here is we're going to build on top of this. I'm going to hit Control J or Command J if you're on a Mac on your keyboard. What this is going to do is going to duplicate your layer. You can also do this by hitting Alt on your keyboard and click and drag on the shape. This is probably an easier way to do it. And I'm just going to continue this till I get around a reasonable pattern. Make sure that they're around the same size apart from each other until we get to around there. Now what we've created is this ripple effect. It's going to add a little bit of tone to it, but what I see here is that it sort of fades off into the end. What I want to do is I want to make sure I'm showing off the depth in each of these ripples. So after each ripple, I'm going to make a new layer, hit B on my keyboard, change this to around 300. Going to go to a dark blue like the background, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of this tone. Now keep going in between each layer and just add the same thing. This will sort of just separate each layer. Now once we've done this, I'm noticing that this is a bit too light for my liking. What we're going to do is we're going to hit Control or Command G on our keyboard. It's going to group our layers. We're just going to name this bottom ripple. Now on here, I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to go up to this blue over here, change this to a bigger size. I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to change it to linear light. Just going to bring this opacity down. You can see the difference as I drag the opacity. I think here's around good. You can see this compared to the old one, just brings it out a little. Now from this ripple, I'm going to do the same but slightly less to the top. I'm going to hit Control Command J, grab our bottom layer, Control Command T to bring up the transformation tools, make this bigger, rotate it out, enter, and then I'm just going to change the opacity down to around about that, and that's just going to bring the depth out in the top shape. Now from this, I'm going to Control Command G the top, call this top ripple. So now that we have the top and the bottom ripple, we're going to make a new layer on top of this, hit B on the keyboard to get our brush. I'm going to go down to a nice light blue, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little glow in the top corner here. If you feel that the glow is too much, just Control Command Z on your keyboard, get rid of it until you've got it right. Now I'm going to go to our blending modes, and I'm going to change this to, let's say, linear light. Make a new layer on top of that, bring this color down a little bit, make the size a bit smaller, because I just want to show off this blue a little bit more. We're going to make a new layer, select B on our keyboard again, bring our color down to around this aqua blue shape, and just add a little bit more of a glow. Bring the opacity on this down a bit, because I just wanted to have a nice soft glow to a darker blue at the top here. From this, I'm going to go above, new layer on our keyboard, go to our whites, and I'm just going to make a top light. I'm going to bring this opacity down to around 10%, and now we've got the basis of our back design. One more thing that I want to add to this is below this bottom ripple layer for our shape, I'm going to make a new layer, be on our keyboard, we're going to select this aqua color, make it to around 500 brush size, and I'm going to make a nice bottom glow. I'm just going to keep adding to this until I get it to the darkness that I like. Make the brush a bit smaller if I want to add a bit more depth right at the bottom, and there's our bottom glow. This is the basis of our back design. All I'm going to do from here is connect all of these layers, Control Command G, group them together. I'm just going to name this back design. Naming your layers and grouping them together is a great way to keep your documents clean, and it's a good way to, if you have a big document, you can easily prioritize where you want to go to and what you want to fix up. Now what we're going to do next is work in our text. We're going to hit T on a keyboard to bring up our text tool, click in the middle, write out our name. You can select any name that you want. If it's for yourself, if it's for a friend. In this case, mine's for a friend, and his name's Quick Draw. I'm going to type in his name, and I'm going to deselect that as a text option. And then I'm going to hit Control T on our keyboard to transform it. Hold down Alt. This is just going to bring it out from the center. And I'm just going to make this to the size that I want. I think around this size is good. If you want to know text size, it's around 122 points of text. And I'm going to highlight this. Depending on your software or what you've been doing recently, your text may change colors. All you have to do is go up to the top control bar, and we're going to make this white. Next, we're going to double click on our text layer. This is going to bring up our text options. All we're going to be adding to this is a drop shadow and another drop shadow on top of that, which is going to be darker, which is just going to bring out the bottom of the design. We're going to add our first drop shadow. We're going to make it around 20 pixels, a nice bluish gray that I've got here. If you want color code, it's 55575B. I'm going to hit OK, add another drop shadow to this, and this is just going to be a black drop shadow. We're going to make sure we don't want our size to be harsh. We want it to be a bit spread out, our distance a bit low, and here I think it's too black. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring down this opacity to around about, we'll say 50%. Hit OK on your keyboard, and this is the base for the text. At the moment it's looking a bit plain, not as plain compared to if we were to have it normally, but with the drop shadows adds a bit of detail. On top of this, we're going to create a new layer. Right click, clipping mask. In this clipping mask, it's only going to select the text that we've done. We're going to hit P on our keyboard for our pen tool, click once, click again, and we're just going to create a nice curve. Then we're going to select around the text, selection, okay, hit B on a keyboard, around 250, 300 pixels for our brush size, and I'm just going to go to a nice bluish grey as we had for the drop shadow. From this, I'm just going to go above the text and just create a nice shadow for it, just like this. Make my brush tool bigger so it goes down a little bit. Now at the moment it's looking a bit bold, so what I want to do is hit E on our keyboard, and just on the edges I'm going to lessen the gradient so it's mainly focused in the center. From here it's looking a bit harsh. I'm going to bring down the opacity to around about 80%. That's looking good. From here I'm going to select my text layer, hit T on your keyboard, highlight a text, this top text curve tool. We're going to grab this and we're going to select shell lower. We're going to bring this to -15, hit OK, deselect. Now we're going to grab our text and our shadow, make sure you grab both, hit Control T on our keyboard, holding the control key and having your selection arrow out, we're going to click on the top point, raise it up on an angle, and we're going to make our text a bit bigger, bit downwards, and that's looking perfect. As you can see here, we've done our text, we've added our shadow. I'm actually going to move up this shadow a bit, it's looking a bit low, center this. Now we've got the basis for our design. From here, I want to add a bit more detail to this text, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some highlights. Hit B on our keyboard, select a white color, bring down our brush to around 100, and we're just going to create these nice glows at the top of some corners of text. Go to the bottom area, Add a bit of glow to this. In the middle here, perfect. We're gonna go to our layer options and set this as soft light. Once we've finished with our layer styles on our text, as you can see from the drop shadow, it gives the text a 3D effect, but there are a bit of mistakes that happen when you're applying a drop shadow. As you can see here, the drop shadows drop down, but we're missing some sections to really bring this to a 3D dimension. So what we're going to do to fix this, we're going to turn off our lights so that we can only get this raw color of the drop shadow. Go below our text, create a new layer, hit I on the keyboard for your eyedropper and select this grey color. All we're going to do, we're going to grab our pen tool and we're just going to create our shape to fill in this area. We're just going to fill in this shape, create the area, hit selection, be on your keyboard, and we're just going to fill this in. And we're pretty much going to do this for each corner of the text. So you're going to work one by one and you're just going to fix this up. Now as you can see, it's a bit cleaned up, a bit more 3D looking, and this is a simple way to get 3D looking text without using Cinema 4D or any other 3D based program. From here we can turn back on our highlights and we're going to start adding our additional information. So with this you can add sponsors, additional text. So if it's for a person, you could put their role, a little bit about themselves. For this, I'm just going to put this person's role. He is the head manager for Fury and he owns another organization. So I'm going to include that text just to give a little bit more personalization to it. I'm going to hit T on our keyboard, click down. We're going to change our size a bit smaller. And I don't want the text to match with the main heading text. I want it to be a bit thinner, so I'm going to go for Arial, make this smaller, make our text white so it's a bit bold, and we're just going to put in their title. Once we put in their title, we're going to make this smaller, and as we can see the text is on an upward slant. I just want to match that a little bit, so I'm going to raise that up and just make sure that the spacing between each side is around the same. From here, he works for an organization with sponsors. If your person doesn't have any sponsors or any other additional information, you can keep this area down the bottom blank or move the text down to here, or even have some other text or other imagery. It's all up to you and what your creative thoughts bring to you. From this, I'm going to add his sponsors. Paste in the sponsors, move them down to around the center of the text, and this is the basis for our design. We've got all the imagery in, all the shapes, all the tones are done. It's looking good. What I might add to this is a little bit of a spotlight on the text. We're going to grab our brush tool, make that big. We're just going to go in the top corner. We're going to set this to soft light, bring down this opacity to around 21. That's just going to bring a bit of light onto this text. Now as you can see, the colors in this are a bit bland. They're a bit boring apart from this blue down the bottom here, but I really want to make these pop out. If you guys don't know how to create color corrections for this, it's really simple to do and I'm going to walk you through it right now. All we're going to do is we're going to select our whole design, Control G or Command G on our keyboard, Control Command J, and this is going to duplicate the whole header design. We're going to right click, merge group, and now all of this is one flat image compared to having all these layers. Once we have this, we're gonna go up to filter, camera raw filter. There is a minimum on your computer on what specs you have or what software you're using to enable camera raw filter, but if you can get it, it is a life changer. We're gonna go down to this Y, double click this till it brings up these horizontal pans, and this is gonna show you a before and an after preview of what your header looks like. To start off our color corrections, I'm gonna bring the temperature down, seeing as there is more blues in this, to around -13. Bring up our exposure, bring up our contrast, bring down our highlights. Bringing this down will just make this blue stand out more. Drop our shadows, bring up our whites, and I reckon we bring up our blacks. The texture, clarity, dehaze, this is going to add a little bit more detail to it. I'm going to bring up our texture a bit. Clarity, you don't want to add too much, otherwise it's going to make it look a bit fake. So all I'm going to do for this is bring it down to about -5 and bring our dehaze up, which is just going to make those colors shine way more. You can see the blues up here compared to the blues down here, it's just way better. For this, I'm going to bring our vibrancy up. If you bring up your saturation, it's going to make it too blue. Bring up your vibrancy. Our shadow on here, it's just going to be overdone. So I'm only going to bring this up a little bit. And you know what, I'm not even going to change our saturation. And this is looking perfect. You can see the changes that are made in color corrections compared to the old one, and I definitely recommend anyone that wants to start using these. A bit more of an effect, seeing as we've got a lot of blue going on, is I'm going to add a color split to it. So on our keyboard, we're going to hit Control-Shift-R. We're going to go over to Custom in the top corner, and this is where we can change our fringes. Now, because we've got blue in this, I want to change our fixed blue and yellow fringe. Depending on which way you drag it, the split will go a different way. I'm going to bring this split over to the right. I'm going to bring our split over to the right. This is going to make all of our blues go to the left side and our yellows to the right side. I don't want this too much, so I think around 65 to 70 is perfect, and that's all we're going to need. Now you can see the difference in the split. It's just created these blue outlines, these yellow outlines, and it's just going to add a bit more character to our header. And this is basically our finished product. We've gone from this before color corrections to now this. It was very simple to do, very quick and easy. And that's it for today's video. If you like this video, make sure to drop a like, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new, make sure to drop a comment, let me know what you want to see next video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.